The revolving glass doors of the Regal Heights Hotel spun endlessly as guests in tailored suits and designer dresses stepped inside, greeted by the faint scent of jasmine and expensive cologne. The marble floor gleamed under the chandeliers, and the concierge's polite smiles masked the quiet judgment that often floated beneath the surface. Behind the front desk stood two receptionists, Lily and Mason, chatting idly between check-ins. They noticed him the moment he walked in, a young black boy, maybe 19, dressed simply in a faded hoodie, jeans, and sneakers that had clearly seen better days. He carried an old backpack slung over his shoulder and looked around with cautious curiosity. "Can I help you?" Mason asked, his tone polite but distant. The boy approached the counter. "Yeah, I need a suite for a few nights." Lily raised her perfectly shaped eyebrow. "A suite?" she repeated, her tone carrying an edge of disbelief. "Yes," he replied, his voice calm but firm. The two exchanged glances, suppressing their smirks. The suites at Regal Heights were not for people who looked like they had walked in from a bus station. The cheapest one cost more per night than most made in a month. "Of course, sir," Mason said, forcing a courteous smile. "Our best suite requires a minimum balance for booking. Do you have a valid card?" The boy reached into his pocket and pulled out a sleek black card, metal, not plastic. For a brief second, Lily's eyes flickered, recognizing it as one of the most exclusive credit cards in the world. But her disbelief was stronger. "Sir, we do require proof of available balance before check-in," Mason added quickly, trying to regain control. "Hotel policy." The boy smiled faintly. "No problem, go ahead." He slid the card across the counter. Mason took it, inserting it into the reader. The machine blinked, processing, then beeped. "Approved." The two receptionists froze. "Approved." Uh, Mason stammered, looking down at the screen that showed a balance far beyond the total cost. It's all clear." The boy tilted his head slightly, an amused look on his face. "So, can I get the best suite now?" Lily forced a smile. "Of course, sir. Just a moment." As she typed his information, she glanced at the name that appeared, Elijah Carter. Something about it tugged at her memory, but she shook it off. "Enjoy your stay, Mr. Carter," she said, her tone suddenly much softer. Elijah took the key card, nodded, and walked toward the elevator. But as the doors closed behind him, Mason leaned closer to Lily. He must have borrowed that card from someone. He had to. "Yeah," Lily agreed. "People like him don't book the Imperial Suite." Upstairs, the elevator opened to the top floor, a place few ever saw. Elijah stepped out quietly, his gaze sweeping over the gold-trimmed hallways and massive windows overlooking the city skyline. The air was still, almost sacred. He walked to the end of the corridor, stopped in front of a large door marked Imperial Suite, and inserted his key card. The door opened to reveal the world of glass, marble, and luxury. A private piano gleamed near the window, and a grand chandelier sparkled above the velvet furniture. But Elijah didn't look impressed. He looked almost nostalgic. He walked over to the balcony, overlooking the city. His reflection in the glass was calm, but behind his eyes, memories flickered. Of his mother working double shifts, of his father's old hotel uniform, of the day they'd been told to use the staff entrance. He took a deep breath and whispered, "We're back, Dad." Downstairs, gossip spread fast. Within an hour, everyone at the front desk was talking about the black kid in the Imperial Suite. Some thought he was a scammer. Others thought he was a celebrity's assistant pretending to be rich. Lily kept checking the system, half expecting a fraud alert. But instead, a new message appeared on her screen, a special notice marked Private, Owner Access Only. She frowned. "Mason, look at this." He leaned over, eyes widening. "Wait, Elijah Carter?" "Yeah." Carter as in Mr. Raymond Carter's last name? The hotel founder? Lily blinked. No way. Mr. Carter's only son died years ago. There's no record of... Before she could finish, the elevator doors opened again. Elijah stepped out, wearing the same calm look, but his posture was different now. Confident, steady, quietly powerful. He walked up to the front desk. "Can you call the general manager, please?" May I ask what this is regarding?" Mason asked, trying to sound professional. Elijah smiled faintly. "Tell him Elijah Carter would like to speak with him." They froze. Mason's throat dried. "Carter?" "Yes," Elijah replied simply. Within minutes, the general manager, Mr. Dalton, hurried out from his office. He was a tall, gray-haired man with a sharp suit and a sharper tongue. The moment he saw Elijah, he stopped dead in his tracks. "Elijah?" His voice cracked slightly. "Hello, Mr. Dalton," Elijah said with a faint smile. "It's been a while." The entire lobby fell silent. Dalton approached, his voice lowering to a respectful tone. "Sir, I didn't know you were—" "It's all right," Elijah interrupted softly. "I didn't exactly announce it." The receptionists exchanged horrified looks. Mason's hand trembled as he realized who they had just mocked. Dalton cleared his throat, turning to them. "Mr. Carter is the heir of Regal Heights International. This hotel," he gestured around, his voice steady now, "belongs to his family." Lily's face went pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Elijah looked at them, his expression unreadable. "I didn't come here to make anyone uncomfortable," he said quietly. "I just wanted to see how the hotel was treating guests these days." Dalton looked uneasy. "We've maintained our standards, sir, though I admit sometimes people forget what those standards truly mean." Elijah's eyes lingered on Lily and Mason. "Yeah," he said softly. "Sometimes they do." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. The silence that followed said everything. After a pause, he turned back to Dalton. "I'd like to stay a few nights. No special treatment. I want to experience it as any guest would." "Of course, sir, anything you need." "Thank you," Elijah interrupted, then walked away toward the elevator again, leaving behind a stunned silence. When the doors closed, Mason exhaled shakily. "We're dead." Lily buried her face in her hands. "He's the owner's son. We mocked the owner's son." But up in the suite, Elijah sat quietly by the piano, his fingers tracing the keys without pressing them. He thought about his father, Raymond Carter, the man who built Regal Heights from the ground up, before passing away when Elijah was 15 years old. After his father's death, the board pushed his mother and him aside, claiming he was too young to be involved. They turned the hotel into a symbol of elitism, a place where people were judged by the clothes they wore, not the hearts they carried. Elijah had left the country, built a tech company on his own, and silently bought back the controlling shares of Regal Heights under a trust name. Now he had returned, not as the poor kid they once pitied, but as the unseen owner they'd all forgotten. Outside the window, rain began to fall, soft, rhythmic, almost cleansing. Elijah leaned back, eyes distant. "It's time to fix what they broke," he whispered. Downstairs, Mr. Dalton gathered the staff, his tone sharp but measured. "From this moment on," he said, "you will treat every guest as if they were Mr. Carter himself. No more judgments, no more arrogance. This hotel was built on respect, and I won't let us forget that again." Lily's voice was trembling when she spoke. "Will he fire us?" Dalton sighed. "I don't know, but if he doesn't, it means he's a better person than we deserve." That night, Elijah walked through the hotel's quiet halls, unseen. He passed by staff rooms, listened to whispers, watched how people moved, some kind, some indifferent, some pretending to care. He saw what his father's dream had become. When he reached the old service corridor, the one his mother used to clean, he paused. The walls were still the same, the smell of bleach faint but familiar. He touched the wall gently, remembering her laughter echoing in these very halls. He whispered, "You worked here your whole life, Mom. You never got to stay in a suite. But tomorrow, you will." Morning light spilled through the tall glass windows of the imperial suite, casting soft gold on the marble floor. Elijah woke early, long before the city below came alive. He sat on the balcony, a cup of black coffee in hand, watching the mist lift over the skyline. For the first time in years, he was back where it had all started. But now, everything was different. A gentle knock broke the silence. "Room service," came a woman's voice. Elijah opened the door to find a middle-aged black woman standing there, her uniform pressed neatly but slightly faded. Her eyes were tired, yet kind, the kind that carried stories of years spent smiling through exhaustion. "Good morning, sir," she said politely, wheeling in the breakfast tray. "Thank you," Elijah replied. "What's your name?" "Clara, sir," she smiled faintly. "Been here for almost 20 years." 20? Elijah repeated softly. "That's longer than most managers, isn't it?" Clara chuckled. "I've seen him come and go. I started when Mr. Raymond Carter was still alive. He was a good man, treated us like family." Her tone softened. "Things changed after he passed, though." Elijah's chest tightened slightly. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I heard." She didn't recognize him. Not yet. But her voice carried a warmth that reminded him of his mother. Clara set the tray down, adjusted a napkin, and was about to leave when Elijah stopped her. "Clara," he asked her. "Yes, sir?" "If you could change one thing about this hotel, what would it be?" Her eyebrows lifted, surprised. "Oh, that's a big question." "I've got time," Elijah said, smiling. She thought for a moment, glancing around the lavish suite. "I'd bring back kindness," she said finally. "Back when Mr. Carter was alive, no one was treated differently because of how they looked. These days, it's all about who looks rich enough to matter." Elijah nodded slowly. "Thank you, Clara. That's exactly what I needed to hear." When she left, he stood at the window, looking out over the city again. His father's voice echoed in his mind. "A hotel isn't built with walls, son. It's built with hearts." He whispered back, "Then it's time to rebuild." Later that morning, Elijah requested a meeting with Mr. Dalton in the executive lounge. Dalton arrived promptly, still uneasy around him. "Sir, I hope your stay has been satisfactory so far," Dalton said, standing respectfully. "It's been revealing," Elijah replied. "Tell me something, Mr. Dalton. What's our hiring policy now?" Dalton blinked. "A standard procedure, sir. Do we prioritize skill or appearance?" Elijah interrupted. Dalton hesitated. "We try to maintain a professional image, sir. Guests expect a certain—" Elijah raised a hand. "That's what I thought." He stood, walking slowly to the window. "When my father opened this hotel, he hired people who needed a chance, not people who already had one. That's what made Regal Heights different. Now it's just another monument to arrogance." Dalton swallowed hard. "You're right, sir. We've lost touch with that." "I'm not here to blame," Elijah said quietly. "I'm here to fix it." Dalton nodded, relief softening his posture. "What would you like me to do?" "I want every department head in the conference hall at noon. Staff too, everyone. No uniforms, no hierarchy. Just people." Dalton nodded quickly. Yes, sir. As he left, Elijah exhaled deeply. The time for silence was over. By noon, the grand conference hall buzzed with quiet whispers. Housekeepers stood beside receptionists, bellboys beside chefs, all unsure why they'd been summoned. Lily and Mason stood at the back, pale and uneasy, avoiding eye contact with anyone. Then the doors opened, and Elijah entered, still in his simple hoodie and jeans. The whispers grew louder. "Who's that?" someone murmured. "That's him, the guy who booked the Imperial Suite." Dalton stepped forward and raised his hand for silence. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Elijah Carter." The room fell completely still. Elijah walked up to the podium, calm but resolute. His eyes swept over the room, not with pride, but with a quiet sadness. "I know most of you don't recognize me. That's fine. I left this place a long time ago. But this hotel was my father's dream, and it used to mean something." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "My father, Raymond Carter, built this hotel with a simple belief that luxury isn't about chandeliers or marble floors. It's about how you make people feel. Every guest, every worker mattered to him." He looked at Clara, who stood near the middle, eyes wide with surprise. "When I was a kid, my mother worked here as a cleaner. She'd come home tired, but she was proud that she worked for a place that treated her with respect. But somewhere along the way, we lost that spirit. We started valuing appearances over kindness, wealth over warmth." The room stayed utterly silent. "I came back not to judge," he said softly. "I came back to rebuild that dream. And that starts today." He gestured toward the back of the room where Dalton handed out a few folders. "Inside those folders are new initiatives, fair pay adjustments, scholarship programs for employees' children, and training sessions on empathy and guest equality." The employees murmured, stunned. "But more than that," Elijah added, "I want everyone from the front desk to the kitchen to remember why this place exists. No more mocking guests because of how they look. No more judging by clothes, accents, or color. That ends today." His gaze shifted briefly to Lily and Mason, who stood frozen in shame. "We all make mistakes," he said gently. "What matters is that we learn from them." Lily's eyes filled with tears. She whispered, "I'm so sorry, sir." Elijah gave a small nod. "Then show me you mean it, not for me, but for the next person who walks through those doors." He stepped away from the podium as quiet applause began, hesitant at first, then growing louder, filling the entire hall. Clara's eyes glistened as she clapped, whispering, "Mr. Carter would be proud." That evening, the hotel felt different. The air was lighter, conversations warmer. Mason helped an elderly guest carry her luggage without being asked. Lily went out of her way to smile at every visitor who entered. Even the guards at the door stood a little taller, their greetings genuine for once. Elijah walked through the lobby unnoticed, watching quietly. He stopped near the fountain where Clara was arranging fresh flowers. "Clara," he said softly. She turned, smiling. "Oh, Mr. Carter, I didn't realize." Her eyes widened suddenly. "Wait, Carter? As in Raymond Carter?" Elijah chuckled softly. "Yeah, I guess the name gives it away." Her hands flew to her mouth. "You're his son?" "I am." "My mother used to work with you, didn't she?" Her eyes softened with recognition. "Maria? Oh my goodness, she was wonderful." "You look just like her." Elijah smiled, eyes glistening. "She used to say the same about you. She always admired how kind you were." Clara wiped her eyes. "She'd be so proud of you, Elijah. Your father, too." "Thank you," he said quietly. I just want to make this place what they both dreamed it could be." As they stood there, a small group of guests entered, a young couple with a little girl holding a teddy bear. The child's shoes were muddy, her jacket worn. Lily was at the counter again. For a moment, Elijah tensed, wondering if history would repeat itself. But Lily smiled warmly, kneeling so she was at eye level with the girl. "Hi there. What's your teddy's name?" The girl giggled shyly. "Benny." "Well, Benny and his best friend deserve a good room, don't they?" The mother looked flustered. "We don't have much money." Lily shook her head gently. "Don't worry. I'll find something nice within your budget." Elijah's lips curved into a smile. That's more like it, he thought. When the family left with their key, he walked up behind Lily. "That was good," he said quietly. She turned, startled, then smiled nervously. "Thank you, sir. I learned from my mistake." He nodded approvingly. "Keep learning. That's what matters." That night, Elijah stood once more on the balcony of the Imperial Suite. The city lights shimmered like a sea of gold below him. The wind carried the faint hum of life, laughter from the bar, music from the lobby, footsteps echoing through the halls. He thought about everything his family had endured, everything this place had become, and everything it could be again. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn photo. His parents standing in front of the hotel the day it opened. His father's arm around his mother, both of them smiling with pride. Elijah whispered, "We're home again." He placed the photo on the desk beside the piano where sunlight would hit it each morning. Then he sat down at the keys and began to play softly, a melody his father had once hummed while walking through these halls. The notes floated gently through the room, filling the air with something the hotel hadn't felt in years: warmth, love, and belonging. Outside, the illuminated sign of Regal Heights glowed brighter than ever, reflecting the change happening within. And for the first time in a long time, it truly lived up to its name.